We're exiting Bermondsey Station onto Jamaica Road, and we're going to cross from one side of Bermondsey to the other, east to west. It's a bit of a windy April day today, so I'm going to turn down the effects mic or we'll all get blown away and our hearing damaged. So Jamaica Road here was actually named after a house which sold limes, oranges and rum, but you'd never know it from the look of the modern street. It's a long busy road running from Southwark Park to the heart of Bermondsey. At the station here we're somewhat east of the centre of all the action, so let's set the scene a bit. South of the River Thames and just east of Tower Bridge, Bermondsey has a long and varied history. It's where the Charles Dickens villain Bill Sikes met his grisly end. It's a story of monks and abbots, and more cheerfully, it was a home of biscuits. Along the main rivers of London, both the Thames and the Lee, are a series of place names that literally mean island. You can see this with the places that end with the letters EA, like Chelsea, or EY, like Bermondsey. Bermondsey's name may derive from Bjorman's Island. It features in the Domesday Book and was owned by William the Conqueror. Long as its history is, only in the year 2000 was Bermondsey connected to the London Underground, when the Jubilee line opened Bermondsey Tube Station. It's just started to rain and it's not the weather for ambling about in a pleasure garden. But a particular pleasure garden, called Cherry Garden, was founded slightly behind our position here during the 17th century. Samuel Pepys visited what he called Jamaica House at Cherry Gardens in 1664. The Jacobean building called Jamaica House stood in nearby Cherry Garden Street until the 1860s, and it is named after the newly acquired colony of Jamaica. It was possibly a place where limes, oranges and rum were available to serve guests of the Cherry Garden. Jamaica Road was named after the house, and parts of it was named variously as Bermondsey New Road and Jamaica Row until the whole road was extended later in the 18th century. So you're just getting a peek of St James's Church, and in 1829 this church was built near Jamaica Road by James Savage. This section of path is now officially part of Thurland Road. Over the wall here is the St James's Church Primary School, and the path beside it follows the former line of Jamaica Road. In the 1960s, a large section of Jamaica Road was completely realigned and at the same time widened into dual carriageway. Most of the former course became Old Jamaica Road. It's hard to imagine with all the new builds that this was a main road with trams running along it. By the late Victorian era, Jamaica Road had taken a serious turn down market. Housing of appalling condition filled the area and many residents were very poor. Little of the Victorian housing remains from that time, as wartime damage allowed much redevelopment to take place in the 1950s and the 1960s, and we'll see up ahead in the 2000s as well. I'll tell the story later, but those railway arches are part of the very first railway in London. So I'm really not sure if I approve of all these new builds. Not the fact that they're being built, because London certainly needs the housing, but the design, the architectural design is so bland. It could be really anywhere, even though it's Bermondsey, which is a place with a long history. There's nothing here which shouts vernacular architecture. We could be in Salford, Houston. I find it just rather depressing that design seems to have been, apart from this thing on the right, which is rather nice. Can't say I know what it is. Well, I suppose it's mock Tudor. It's not actually. It's also not very in keeping with the historic Bermondsey neighbourhood. Though I might be wrong, and somebody can tell me in the comments that that's been there for centuries. But tower block ahead, and the old Jamaica Road is coming to a close. But the line of the former Jamaica Road now goes right here. That telephone box is going to be a historic object one day. And walk up to the traffic lights and rejoin the main caboose. As it developed over the centuries, Bermondsey underwent many changes. After the Great Fire of London, it was settled by well-to-do people and took on the character of a garden suburb. In the 18th century, Bermondsey became briefly fashionable when a spring was discovered next to the River Neckinger. From the site of this leisure resort, we get the name Spa Road. We're coming in from the bottom of the modern map where it says A200 and running diagonally southeast to northwest across the scene, and this is the modern Jamaica Road. But I'll merge in the 1900 map to show the older road layout at this point. This was all originally part of a road called Dockhead, and it was called Dockhead for the very good reason that it lay at the head of St Saviour's Dock. In front of us, as I walk, was Jacob's Island, which was a slum, and to the east of the dock. To the west of St Saviour's Dock, between it and London Bridge, was the site of the old village of Horsley Down. Horsley Down, which had a marvellous name, lost its identity and became part of Bermondsey as the area industrialised in the 19th century. Bermondsey was founded as a Cluniac priory in the year 1082, and it was dedicated to Saint Saviour. The monks turned an adjacent tidal inlet at the mouth of the River Neckinger, that's the water we've just been looking at, into a dock named St Saviour's Dock, after their abbey. The Knights Templar also owned land here, and the Knights gave a name to one of the most distinctive street names in London, Shad Thames. Shad Thames is a corruption of the word St John at Thames. Other ecclesiastical properties stood nearby. One was at Tooley Street, and the name Tooley Street is also a corruption. It was originally St Olaf Street, but Londoners couldn't say that. By the 19th century, the area around St Saviour's Dock, now known as Jacob's Island, became one of the worst slums in London. Jacob's Island was immortalised by the Charles Dickens novel Oliver Twist. There, the principal villain, Bill Sikes, meets a nasty end in the mud. So, how do streets get their names? Well, here's a hint for Tanner Street. Ahead is the Druid Street Arch. On October the 25th, 1940, a bomb fell through the railway arch, killing 77 people, sheltering from an air raid. That's a sad story, but since once again we've encountered the oldest railway viaduct in London, it's perhaps time to tell its story. London's first passenger railway terminus was built by the London and Greenwich Railway in 1836. That year, at 8 a.m. on the 8th of February to be precise, the first train in London left Deptford for Spa Road Station, Bermondsey. Unfortunately, there was another claim to fame. The first fatal railway accident in London occurred at Spa Road Station on Monday the 7th of March 1836. Spa Road marked the very edge of the London metropolis when the railway was built. Construction of the viaduct had started at Corbett's Lane when this was still in the open countryside. 100,000 bricks were laid every day to construct it, causing a shortage of bricks in the rest of London. It's not called Tower Bridge Road for absolutely no reason. It was a road cut through the area leading south from, Tower Bridge. And it cut through an area of particularly poor housing in Bermondsey. In the 19th century that was quite a common thing. You cut a new road like Kingsway, Aldwych or Tower Bridge Road, get rid of all the slums, and that was their idea of social improvement. Since we're in the heart of Bermondsey here, time for a bit more history. By the mid-19th century, parts of Bermondsey, especially along the riverside, had become a notorious slum, with the arrival of industrial plants, docks and bad housing. Industries that were deemed too horrible to be carried out within the City of London were relocated here. One that came to dominate central Bermondsey away from the riverfront was the processing and trading of leather and hides. It was all rather smelly. Luckily, and somewhat sweeter, the Pig Freeing Company was established in 1857 at Dock Head. They moved to a larger plant in Clements Road in 1866, leading to Bermondsey's nickname, Biscuit Town. Wee Willie Harris came from Bermondsey. He is usually credited as the first British rock and roller, and he also worked at Pig Freeing's. It's wet, it's horrible, and we're on Tower Bridge Road. Time for a bit of pie and mash. Towards the southern end of Bermondsey Street stood the Abbey of St Saviour's. It was founded in 1081, and we passed Bermondsey Square when we were on Tyers Road, which was on the other side of it. Bermondsey Street itself is a delightful thoroughfare, adorned with a variety of trendy cafes, restaurants, shops and offices, but it's a long old slog up to Tyers Gate where we'll be making a turn. Well, while in the real world I'll walk up it, you'll not notice that I've done so. And it's time for some modern history of Bermondsey. To the east of Tower Bridge, Bermondsey's 3.5 miles of riverside were lined with warehouses and wharves, of which the best known is Butler's Wharf. They suffered severe damage during the Second World War bombing and became redundant in the 1960s following the collapse of the river trade. The invention of containerisation moved the trade downriver to Tilbury. Many of the wharves were redeveloped by the London Docklands Development Corporation during the 1980s. They've now been converted into a mixture of commercial units and residential flats, some of the most upmarket and expensive properties in London. In 1997, US President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Prime Minister Tony Blair and Cherie Blair visited the area and dined at Butler's Wharf. I cut out a lot of Bermondsey Street there, and lots of lovely cafes and neighbourhood goings on, but we're turning into Tyers Gate and I'll keep stum now until London Bridge Station. There's a lot going on in the area up ahead, a nice park, some Peabody buildings, an interesting pub on a corner and some roadworks. I don't want to get too John Rogers about this, but that was an amazing walk, evidenced by my windswept look, just all red and ruddy cheeked and hair blown away. The wind was amazing. When I say amazing, the wind was terrible. It was amazingly strong. It rained, it was sunny. But that was a long ambition to visit a genuine Manze's pie and mash shop. And I'm glad, despite a slight detour, I managed to do it. Okay, that's the end of Bermondsey to London Bridge.